okay, what specific skill or information are you missing? And like we did before, we dive into the depth to get to the core. How can you get the maximum results with the information you already have? What's really happening? Look again at the facts. And if you look at the facts, you can deal with the facts.
Welcome to the Revenue Discussion Podcast. This podcast aims to inspire and educate the newest generation of revenue leaders on various subjects related to sales, marketing, revenue operations, and customer success. Every week, we invite an inspirational guest who is willing to share his or her insights, strategies, and tactics that has worked or is still working for him or her. Today, we have invited Sven Baccus to the show. If you don't know who he is a high-performance coach. What does that mean? That is exactly what we unpack in this episode, but also we take a look at what does it mean in a sales context. What does it mean to be a high-performing sales rep? And of course, there are some things such as the fear of rejections, such as the roller coaster of emotions when we win and we lose deals that we elaborately discuss in this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the show, Sven. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you on the show because this is the very first time that we have a performance coach on the show. And so obviously we will talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, maybe you should kind of give an introduction. Who is Sven Baccus? What have you done? And how did you become a performance coach?
Okay, will do. Well, I would describe myself as a competition animal. I'm somebody who goes for it in business, in sports, in life. I'm married. I have 2 kids of 3 and 5 years old. I'm a freak at sports, mostly triathlon. And I'm about getting the maximum out of everything, but we'll come back to that later, of course. My background, I'm actually a civil engineer. I have a bachelor in physics and a master's in civil engineering. And I started working as an engineer for basics. First a year in Brussels as a design engineer. Then I moved to Dubai for 5 years, where I started out as a project engineer, then moved more into processes, both on project level as company level. And then I moved into digital transformation because I was very interested in technology and making things better. And that came on my path and I went for it. But after some time, I noticed something that bothered me, being that the results did not match the potential. There were results, of course, but not to the level I thought was possible. And it seemed that there was another bottleneck, being the people. Both myself, because I was the one who had to implement it, but also the people in the organization, because they had to adopt it and execute it. And that's when my current journey started as a high performance coach with the question, how can I break through this situation?
Okay. All right. And so maybe kind of give an explanation of how you then break through that, how you made that happen, how you got also in touch with that high performance coaching aspect.
Yeah. So I went looking for answers. And initially, I didn't really find them. I found a lot, but I was not able to implement it. And then I came in touch with somebody who I've worked with a long time ago when I was still a student. And she's working for a company in high performance coaching. And she was seeing my adventures and the things I was doing. And she invited me to have a look at what they were doing. And after some time, I actually hired one of their high performance coaches. And once I started working with them in a very short time frame, I was actually able to make quite a transition. For example, I was basically disrupting processes as digital transformation. And in general, people do not like it. They like it in theory, but once they have to do something, it's a different level. And I got resistance, which happens all the time. But instead of pushing through that resistance, I held back because I didn't really like to go into the confrontation. I was more somebody like having fun conversations, those kind of things. And It works in certain situation, but not in this situation.
Mm.
And once I was actually able to break through that pattern, I was able to get the results I was not getting before. And that was a feeling like, wow, I can really control something, I can really change something. And that was a powerful moment for me.
Can
And
you
I discovered,
go a little bit deeper on that? So, what did you do differently from the situation before and after having that performance coach that challenged your yeah your way of working? I will say.
yeah, so before I was basically new to digital transformation. And I really liked the technical part, the tool,
Okay.
and I really had control over it. But people had resistance because hey, they had to do additional work. They had to do things they maybe didn't want to do or they didn't see the benefit. And I didn't like to go into confrontation. And maybe deeper on that was maybe I was not so certain about my things as I was thinking.
Mm.
And maybe I was looking too much as, okay, what would they think of me when I come here and I force them to do things? And somehow my coach made me see that and he brought me in touch. Okay, what happens if you are holding back? What is actually the goal of this digital transformation? It's not implementing a tool, it's actually getting certain results for the company.
Hmm.
And I was responsible for that. And if I did not push it through in an appropriate way, we were not getting those results. So me holding back, me being not so sure about what I was doing, was actually having quite severe consequences. Once I put that aside, it was still uncomfortable, but we were actually getting the results. And
Mm.
because I was getting those results, people were starting to be happy. Hey, this is working. And my confidence was growing. And it actually started like a snowball. It started small by me taking a certain action I was not doing before. And it grew bigger and bigger. And we were started.
Awesome. All right. No, very interesting. And that obviously made you in contact with the, well, I mean, maybe still explain the step then of you becoming yourself a high performance coach. I can already imagine kind of the step you made there, but please explain.
Yeah. So I discovered quite a lot patterns within myself, both in a business context, as in a personal context, as in relationships, even with my kids. And the fun thing is, I started seeing these patterns in others, even my boss, for example. So at one point, my boss, who was the owner of the company I was working for, he was somehow complaining to me. I'm forced to being a manager in the company. I have to do work too much in the company instead of on the company.
Mm.
And he mentioned that a couple of times until I asked, okay, and what are you actually doing so that in some time you can make the shift to working as a manager to work on your company? And he didn't have an answer on that. He didn't know. He didn't see that what he was doing was complaining, but not taking the actions required
Mm.
to actually go to where he wanted to be. And I found it a bit enjoyable that I was seeing that and he was not. And I started to see it in other people as well. And it was like a missing piece in my story because I have so many interests, not necessarily in civil engineering, but in sustainability, in health, in nutrition, in performance in general, digital transformation. But I could not specialize in all those fields. So what I do now I specialize in the people who work in those fields because they are all people and they all work within the same principles.
Hmm.
And for me, that was an opportunity to widen my circle of impact by doing something I really like doing and I'm starting to be good at. And that's when I made the decision, okay, maybe I should stop doing what I've been doing until now and fully move into this field.
Very, very interesting. All right. Well, thank you for that. Now I have a question I gotta ask you, but what is then actually high performance coaching? What is it that you do exactly? Maybe you can bring in some examples of how you approach it. Curious to find out more about that.
That's an interesting question, one that I've had for a long time as well. Because you can start using it without exactly being able to define it. It's not something theoretical. You have to start using it and you will experience it. But basically, it comes down to this: you hire a high performance coach for results, nothing else. Yes, your life will be easier, you will be better to deal with stress, but in the core, you hire a high performance coach for results, measurable results. It's often expressed as a number, for example, a turnover or profit margin or something like that, but it's always measurable results. Now, to give you an example, let's say somebody comes to me and he has a goal of 300K turnover for 2023. That's a goal. But that goal is very much on the surface, and we don't work with surface goals. So my first
Okay.
question is, okay, why 300K? Why not 200? Why not 400? What's behind it? Okay, they give some explanation. Maybe if they do 300K turnover, they can do a certain investment in a machine. Okay, fine. And if you are able to invest in that machine, what then? Okay, then maybe they can do certain processes that they subcontract now to do them in-house.
Hmm.
Okay, why would you want to do them in-house? Well, at the moment we are dependent on those subcontractors and they do not always reach deadlines. So when we make a promise to a client, we are dependent on other people and
Hmm.
that's not really working out. So when we are able to do these processes in-house, we are better able to deliver towards our clients. Okay. And if you are better able to deliver towards your clients, what then? And so you can go on very, very, very
Right.
deep. And the reason for that is because it puts more importance on the goal, it puts more urgency, and you will definitely have to do things that you are uncomfortable with. But the bigger the goal, the more you can bear and the more you have the drive to actually start doing the required actions.
Hmm.
So basically, that's one example of how we go into that. We do it with situations as well. If you throw a situation at me, we rarely look at the situation as you ask it to me. First, we break it down to what is really happening here. We go to the core, and from there, you are able to make a shift towards something that works better. So
Okay.
basically, a high performance coach you hire for results to move you from A to B.
All right. And so suppose that I would hire you as a coach in my context, for example. How would that, how would that look like? How would we interact with one another? How would you try to challenge me, or how would it go?
Well, our first interaction will be conversation,
Okay.
where you tell about what you are doing, what your goals are, what's the reason that you contact me in the first place, and I start asking questions back. Basically, I challenge you to nearly everything that you say to find out what is it really that you are trying to achieve. And at the same time, I hear things that other people do not hear. People who are not trained in this, they listen to what you say, but they also listen to what you do not say. And I try to figure out what's your point of view, because your point of view makes that you do the things that you do. And I already try to see what's keeping you from reaching your goals. And once we have like a first idea of that, then, well, we both have to decide if we want to work together, and it's a two-way street. You have to be able, or you have to be prepared to do the actions, but I also want to be confident that if I work with you, that you are able to get results.
Hmm.
And in general, we work with people who are already performing, who already have something going on, and we make them better. So we have really like a threshold.
Hmm.
And to give an example of that, let's say I work with a car dealer, and there are a couple of salespeople, and one of them is selling 3 cars a month. And we are able to make him perform better to go from 3 to 9. That's times 3. But it's
Yeah.
still way below the cutoff. Now, let's say there is another person who's already selling 30 cars, and you can make him 20% better. That's from 30 to 36. That's something you really create something. That's when
Mm-hmm.
you can. That's when you really can create results. And I actively look for those people because one, then we are able to make impact, and if somebody is not able to do the actions, you can have the best coach, the best trainer in the world. It will have minimal results. And like I said before, I'm here for maximum results.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I also like what you said about you also listen to what the client, in your case, do not say. I find it very interesting because I was thinking, yeah, I can always go to a colleague, to a friend, to family members, and I will always listen and always try to help. But I think that's also that skill of really see things that we don't see ourselves. And especially also in when you are a high performance coach, you say that you are not bound to a specific field. So it's really about the human, the person, and I think that's also very fascinating. Not always easy, I guess.
No, it's not. Maybe I have an example. Um, well, first of all, how do we make people perform? We create a very high level of self-consciousness and control so that you are able to deal with every situation and get the optimal results. And most of the time, or almost always, you will see new possibilities, not because we create new possibilities, they are always there, but you have to start seeing them. And like you said, I do not focus on the business technical side. That's, with all respects, your domain, your field of expertise. I do not provide certain information. I focus on implementation. I focus on you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
How can you get the maximum results with the information you already have? It's it's rarely information that you are missing, but let's say you miss certain information, don't let it stop you. What exact information are you missing? Where can we get it?
Mm-hmm.
So that you can again move forward. Now, maybe an example of this self-consciousness. Question for you: how many conversations are going on here right now?
To me or to the listener?
Well, you can answer, but the listeners can ask the question themselves.
So how many? Yeah, I would
How
say.
many conversations? Let's say it's only you and me. Yeah? The
Yeah.
listeners can answer for themselves, but between you and me, how many conversations are going on?
Well, I'm guessing you're going somewhere with that question. So I would say obviously there is our conversation, but maybe also what questions I want to ask you next. Maybe that's also some kind of conversation. Is that what you're trying to go to, or curious?
That's where I'm trying. That's where I'm trying to go. Yes. So there is one conversation that we can observe, that people can hear, and that's what I'm saying to you and what you are saying to me.
Mm.
But in my head, there is one or many conversations going on as well. It can be like, okay, is it interesting what I'm saying? Is it clear? Is it valuable for the listeners? How do people perceive me? Indeed, what will Dylan ask me next? But also, maybe I'm hungry. What am I going to eat after this? It can be total random. It may have nothing to do with our conversation, um, but it's there. And what's also there is I have an opinion about what you say. So you say something, and instead of listening to what exactly you say, I already have an opinion ready. And it
Okay.
happens automatically, but you can be trained in recognizing that and really listening to what somebody is saying, not how you perceive it. And once you get the hang of that, the quality of your conversations, it will never be the same again. And because you guys are salespeople, you have a lot of conversations. If you're really trained in this, you can get a big advantage out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can do a small test with the listeners. I
Okay.
don't know how long we've been talking now, but have you already noticed that you have been lost in your own thoughts? Maybe that we said something and you started thinking about it, or you are doing something else and you started thinking about it. or you have an opinion. Maybe what we say is good for you, maybe it's not good for you. I don't know, but it's neither. It is what it is. What we say is what we say. What you make of it, that are your thoughts. And once you notice that, once you notice you're drifting away, come back. Come back to the conversation and see what you can get out of it for yourself. And I assure you, the quality of your conversations will never be the same again.
Interesting. All right, so it's about having an own interpretation of anything that you kind of perceive. For example, and I will try to make it tangible in my context. You brought up earlier the example of a car dealer, and of course we are building a sales community, so I thought there was a connection. But you said car dealer, and that's not really the sales in the context we are in, and so I immediately kind of put some a certain feeling to it of I don't know if that's a right example for this podcast, and maybe that's the thing that you're trying to explain,
Yes,
right?
yes. And what happens then? Maybe you are busy with, no, that's not the right example. I let it be.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you listen to the example and then see, because we are all in different fields. I mean, let's say we sell different things. What can you take out of this example and put it onto your situation?
Mm-hmm.
If you listen from that point of view, you can get something out of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Because at the end, your example had nothing to do with the sales. It had to do with what type of I mean, there need to be some kind of performance. I mean, if you go back to the example, but got it. So what are then common? I
Now,
mean,
now my conversation can be, I didn't use a right example. Maybe that's not good for everyone. You see, it starts something in my
mm-hmm.
head as well. Once I start dealing with that, I'm not in a conversation anymore.
Yeah.
So I have to put it on the side. It can be there. You can never stop it totally. It's there, and we will continue with what you are going to say.
Okay, gotcha. Because maybe what are common and depending of no, not depending. What are like common challenges that you as a high performance coach actually see that people are going through? Where do you see your value available for?
Yeah. So if I put it into categories, people come to me with certain types of questions in general. Maybe it's my business is going well. I like to work with people who are already performing, but maybe I can go to the next level. Or I have certain goals. Can you help me reach them more effectively? Or I have a certain goal, but I'm not reaching it. Can you help me? What's going on here? And note again that I do not make people feel better. You feel better and more in control as a sequence, but I do not focus on reducing pressure. I actually, on the contrary, I add pressure and I make people perform so they get results. So very tangible questions. Okay, I have a goal of 1 million turnover in 2 years. How can we reach that in 1 year?
Mm-hmm.
Or can we go for 1.5 million? I have 40K as a goal in the fourth quarter. Can you help make sure that I reach that?
Mm-hmm.
Or I do 20 meetings with prospects. I only close one deal. What's going on? What's happening with the quality of my conversations? What am I not seeing? Making that making that I only close one deal out of 20, and then we can dive into that. Or
Okay.
you are in a company, and I actually experienced that where like engineering and production, they were like on a collision course. They had all kind of frustrations in between.
We have that with marketing and sales as well. So
Yeah,
common issue.
I didn't want to say that, but something like that. And can we solve that? How can we as a group make sure that we move towards our common goal?
Mm-hmm.
Some things like that.
Okay.
Let's say, yeah, no.
All right. Well, I have a question I want to pass by you because there is quite a famous business influencer, Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you know him by any chance. No?
I do not.
Well, you should definitely check him up. He's I mean, I think to me he's kind of a role model, definitely high performer, and he always talks about he if anyone want to pursue growth, there are three main things people should be aware of. One being skill set, right? Having the right skills, really knowing how to do certain stuff. There are beliefs. Maybe you have some limiting beliefs that act as a bottleneck to you. And the third one are character traits, right? Things that really describe you. Maybe you're hardworking, maybe you're resilient, maybe you're anything that actually could help you with that. And I think that's when we talk about high performance that a lot of people think in the first place about having the right skill set, being good at their craft, doing the right things, right? While I also kind of believe in what Alex Ramosi says there about having the right beliefs in place and having the right character traits. And so I'm kind of curious on your opinion on that.
Yeah. So you say you have skills, beliefs, and character traits.
Yeah.
I definitely agree on that. So let's focus first on the skills. You definitely need skills. You need to be competent. You need to be very, very good at what you do. And that's something you can train. Only for that, you do not hire a high performance coach. You hire like a consultant or a trainer, or you learn it yourself.
Okay.
Just note that you should be very specific here. So let's say a skill. Okay, if somebody says, I want to be better at sales, and I've actually had somebody saying that to me, that's very general. What do you mean by better, first of all? What does it have to deliver? And what do you mean by sales? Sales it has many components. What do you need to be better at? Is it
Yeah.
research? Is it prospecting? Is it closing deals? Is it listening? Be very, very specific on what skill you want to train, and then ask yourself, how can I train it? How can I develop that specific skill?
Yeah, so really the action that you should undertake. And so even saying prospecting, all right, but what do you mean? Is it researching the right prospects? Is it doing the cold call? Is it really doing the cold email? All of that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Good one.
And actually, people often get stuck in the we call it a circle, in the idea that in order to take the next action, they miss information, but they keep on missing this information. Instead of, if they really miss information, okay, find a way to get that information and then do the action. Don't get stuck. And I often have to make people aware of that, and that's why I ask, okay, what specific information are you missing? Because it's very easy if you have to do something that makes you quite uncomfortable. Yeah, I don't have the right information. I cannot do it. Okay, that's fine. But then you will keep having what you have now. So I challenge that. Okay, what specific skill or information are you missing? And like we did before, we dive into the depth to get to the core. Something is blocking them. That's what we move aside. Now, the second thing was beliefs. Yeah, so there is like a huge difference between what people know and what people do, and that has nothing to do with the skill. For example, let's say if we look around us, there are a lot of people who are quite overweight, and every single one of them knows what to do to lose weight. Or let's say 99.9% they know what to do. They may not be perfect, but they know at least what to do. If you give them 5 million euros to lose a certain weight in a certain time period, everybody can do it. Yet they don't do it. And often they claim they cannot do it. So what's stopping them? It's you call it beliefs. It can be beliefs. We call it mental constructions. There is something that they create in their head that's standing in between them and the action they want to do, hence the result. And I think we later on have an example of a mental construction like that. And so yes, I work more on mental constructions, on limiting beliefs, if you will, more than on the skills. So yes, I definitely believe that's something that's holding people back. Now, the last thing is interesting as well. You call it character traits. They can be standing in the way as well. But maybe a question for you. In your opinion, are they fixed or are they not fixed?
Well, that's actually a question I have for you on the podcast, actually, for later on. But no, if I have to answer it, I would say that no, you you can really, I mean, you can really work on character traits. I think at a certain time, it's also who you want to be, and then you just behave according to that person that you want to be as a to be person, and then eventually that character traits more comes more naturally to you. I mean, that's my opinion, but that's you should be answering that question. So kind of curious on your
Yeah,
take.
yeah. So most people think they are quite fixed, and maybe not in some examples, but others they are. So
Hmm.
before I was somebody, I didn't like confrontation, I like harmony. And I did quite some personality tests online. It's always harmony, harmony, harmony. So I identified myself, I'm somebody who needs harmony. That's who I am. I was quite introvert before as well. Maybe I'm still a little bit, um, but it was sitting in the way. And if I ask you, for example, who are you when you are with your colleagues? Who are you when you are with the board of your company? Who are you at home? Who are you with your kids, with your friends at a party? It's all it's all you, but it's all different versions of you. And if you are the person at a party, if you are the person who would be at a party in a boardroom, yeah, it may not work very well. But on the other way, it may not work either. So yes, you have certain character traits, but you can control them. I'm not saying 100%, but to a very large level, you can control them. And you can adjust it to the situation. So if you are in a situation and you are doing something that doesn't work, well, you know what to do. See who do you need to be in the situation to make it work. Let's say you are somebody who likes harmony, and you are in a situation at work where people almost start fighting each other. They are shouting to each other. Everything is going wrong. And if you come there, yes, people, okay, you sit down here, you sit down there. Let's have a look what's happening. Okay, it will not work. At that moment, you have to put your fist on the table. You have to be somebody else
Right.
um, to be able to deal with the situation. Now, this may be a more or less straightforward example, at least for me, but um, it can be much, much more subtle as well.
Hmm.
And once, so you don't see you don't see it in certain situations. So one part of my job is to make people aware who are you in a certain situation. So the first step is being conscious about who you are. So this very high level of consciousness. The next thing is once you see it, you know it, then you can ask yourself, who do I need to be in this situation? And once you actually make that shift, there are a lot of situations that you can handle a lot better than they are going now.
Can you maybe
So
clarify the you need to be aware of your own consciousness? How does one know about their own consciousness? How does that feel? Or how does that know? Yeah.
let me see if I can give an example. Okay, so maybe in the context of sales, I was speaking with somebody who who didn't like cold calling, and he was actually getting results. He was doing a lot of networking. He was speaking to a lot of people. He was getting clients, only not at the level, only not at the level that he needed to make or to get the goals that he wanted. And all his colleagues, his freelancer colleagues, they were doing cold calls, and he didn't like it.
Hmm.
So we dived into it, and we tried to see, okay, what's going on here. And he had like a belief that if I um, if I call somebody, I'm disturbing him. I'm actually annoying them. I'm trying to sell something, and that doesn't work very good.
Hmm.
And he was somebody who wants to please people. He wants to please people, whereas he had to believe. that when he called somebody, he was doing quite the opposite. And that was not working. So there we made a shift to being somebody who wants to please people, like a hidden character trait,
Right.
to being somebody who wants to help people. Because when I asked him, okay, why do you do what you do? He started telling, yes, because of that, and this happened to me before, and I didn't find the answers, and now I have the answers, and I help people. I really want to help people. Okay, but you come from the position, I want to please people, and actually people perceive me as annoying and those kind of things. So after that, he did a session where he had like a list of prospects, and he sorry about that, by the way. And before he started calling, he said out loud, okay, I am here to help people. I help people to move forward with what he was doing. And he picked up the phone and he started calling. Was it still uncomfortable? Yes, of course. You will never get that to zero. But just to make that shift, who he was in the situation before and who he is in the situation now, it makes a difference because now he makes calls and he actually closes calls.
All right. A very, very good example. Now, maybe do you base your work on a certain methodology, or is it, just based on gut feeling, or how do you approach your work?
Yeah, so it's not totally based on my own experience. I follow a certain methodology, being the one of straight line leadership, which is the company I mentioned before. And I am being coached by them. So they actually coach me, but at the same time, they train me to do this as well.
Okay.
So I follow their methodology. I made it my own. I live it because it's not just like reading a book and telling you what I read in the book so you can do it as well. No, I have to experience it. I have to live it day in, day out, 24/7. And from there, I can take it and pass it on to other people. So
Okay,
yes,
okay.
I follow a proven methodology, which has worked with some very very high level companies and entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah, very interesting. Definitely something that people can look up if they want to find out more about straight line leadership on their own. Now, maybe because obviously we are also building a sales community, so always curious to look at high performance in the context of sales. And you have already mentioned a couple of elements. I think it also, I mean, at least to me, it also makes sense what high performance could be in sales, right? Meaning generating a lot of new business. I think people are looking at high performance in sales through that lens. And so, if you would actually try to coach a sales professional, how would you start at it, and how would that go?
Yeah. Um, well, first of all, you say, okay, you have an idea about what means high performance in your context, and again, that's an interpretation. I may have another interpretation. It may go in the same direction, but maybe high performance for you is when you work in a certain company, you do, I don't know, 1 million turnover. But somebody else may say, okay, 1 million, that's peanuts. For me, high performing is doing 5 millions, 5
It's
million.
interesting because I
So
actually even have another interpretation, which is, let's say, if you do 150% above your target, then you can be seen as and you do that over and over again, then let's say that you are a high performer. But it's actually good to see.
for example, but then the question that pops up with me is, where is your target? Is your target challenging enough? If you put as a target 1 million and you do 1.5 million, that's good. But maybe there's somebody else said, okay, no, we put the target at 2 million and you do 2.2 million, then it's not 150% more. So then I would look at, okay, what's the target? What can we deduce from that? Why did you set the target at that level? Um, so I cannot really give a general answer on how I would do that. It's like, okay, look at the details. What are you going for? What's happening? What should we tackle? What are the goals? Into the really really depth. But I think you have some specific situations. We had a short discussion about it before.
Yeah,
That may make things clear.
Yeah, very concrete indeed. Yeah, I think that could be a good idea to do that, because I think indeed in sales you have some situations, some mindset issues, if I can call it like that, that pops up and actually can work on the performance of a sales rep. And I think, um, I mean, I will just share a first one with you, which is maybe, for example, not doing the cold calls, as actually you kind of mentioned that example earlier, but not doing the cold calls or sending the emails because you have a fear of rejection, or saying the hard stuff, the true stuff that you need to say because you don't want to get the rejection. And yeah, suppose someone is going through that. I think a lot of salespeople are. Yeah, how would you approach that as a coach?
Yeah. So we talked about this example before. Who are you in the situation? So I will skip that part. Now, this is again a situation where you know what you have to do, but you don't do it. So it's not the information that's missing. What's happening then? You make something else more important than reaching your goals. And this something else is actually comfort. And so I would look at two things. First of all, look at the fear of rejection. What is that? And to see if we can reduce the resistance. And on the other hand, see if we can make the goal more important. And making the goal more important, let's say the goals that are ahead of you and you are not doing them because it's not important enough to you. Let's say we kidnap your kids and you only get them back if for 1 month or maybe even 1 year you do all the calls that you should do. How many people of you would say, yeah, I'm scared, I'm not going to do that? We are not. Because that goal is important enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why in the beginning we had the example, okay, your goal is a certain number, but what does that number mean? You go all the way down, you make the
Right.
goal much more important. And on the other hand, the situation where you are in now, what happens if you keep doing this and you make it actually worse? You don't invent things, but you bring people in contact with what will happen if you don't. Where are you getting it in like a year, 5 years? I don't know. And you make this gap as big as possible. You bring them in touch, you let them see it, you make them conscious about what's the real situation. And the bigger this gap is, the more drive you have to actually start doing the actions. Now,
While because while you were saying that, I had another conversation in my head going and analyzing what you said there. Um, where I mean, I'm also looking at the context of a sales rep, which is an employee at a certain company, and there to go deeper and deeper in the why. To me, maybe it means also you really have to choose the right employer with the company that has a mission and a vision that aligns so well with you and who you are and what you want to achieve and the impact that you want to make. Because otherwise, you can do that why this and why that exercise, but maybe it won't resonate if you haven't that right company.
yeah, and that's a good point, and I make a distinction there as well. I work with entrepreneurs who actually have this control over what they are doing and the results they are getting out of it,
Hmm.
and you have employees. And there I would not typically work with, let's say, general employees, but more with like managers who have actually control over a certain department. Now, if we talk about sales, I assume you work with commission.
Well, that's another debate, but you have, let's say it's kind of hybrid. You have some fixed, some bonuses based on performance.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's take these two examples. So some people are working with commission. Okay. So if you do the calls, and let's assume you are aligned with the vision of your company, but you personally benefit from it as well. And let's say you do 100K a month for the company, and that gives you a commission of, I don't know, 10K per month. Okay, then you start from there. If you are able to earn 10K per month, what does that mean for you personally? Maybe it means that, I don't know, your partner can stay home with the kids a lot of the time.
Hmm.
Maybe it means you can go on the holiday that you always wanted. You can buy the house that you need because now you live in a house that's not big enough. Maybe it means you can hire a personal trainer because you really need to work on your physique. What does this 10K mean? And let's say it comes with a level of discomfort, and your comfort zone is doing the calls and you reach 5K per month. So 50K turnover, 5K for yourself. Okay, what can you do with this 5K? And maybe more importantly, what can you not do with this 5K? So you make the big gapper. Why big? The gap bigger. Why would you actually go into this discomfort? What does it mean to you? And you make it bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the discomfort is so large that you still do not want to do it, and then maybe it comes to the other situation as well. Let's say you don't have a commission and the resistance is so large that you don't want to do it. Maybe indeed you should ask yourself, okay, why do I want to do it? Why am I not going to do something else? Maybe it's a totally different kind of job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is the same job in a different company. Ask yourself, why do I do what I do? And you can influence it, but okay, at some point, um, maybe it's time to do something else.
Maybe, and I
Now,
mean that's kind of maybe kind of random, maybe also not. But do you think that there are other things that drive maybe also people in willing to perform at the highest level? I'm maybe thinking of status. Is status something that people are really chasing? They want to be seen as high performance, and that's actually the main motivation. Or maybe another one where it's fear that they are trying to. I mean, it's fear the driver of something. They're trying to avoid situation that they don't want to be in, and so that fear is what they drive them to be maybe at a high performance based. I don't know. Do you think that also could be true for many, or do you think there is always something underneath it that is actually the true purpose?
um, I think you have a point. People often do things indeed. Maybe they want to have a certain status. But that's the first thing I challenge. Okay, what do you mean with a certain status? And what makes that you want to reach that status? And then already a lot of things come up. Is it really coming from inside them? Is it coming from something else? I do not know. That's why I ask. But often they do not know either. And you have, for example, my I'm not gonna not gonna say a name. I know somebody who has quite a lot of money, and it's coming because he is afraid to be broke. He's
Hmm.
afraid to be broke. He has more than €1 million on his account, and he works a lot. He works very hard. He's not spending anything, so he has all this money because he's afraid to be poor, to do not have the money.
Hmm.
But how is that working in a situation? Is he happy? I don't really see it. So his driver is, let's say, out of proportion. And it makes him do some things, and he's actually doing them. But if you really look at the core, it's it's not really in balance. It's not what he wants to do.
Hmm.
So that's the fear part. We break down fear. Okay, what's really happening? What are you afraid of?
Okay.
And what happens also, you have a lot of people who want a lot. I want a big house. I want a nice car. I want this. I want that. But you can try to close your eyes and think about 20 minutes, all the things you want, but do not have yet. After these 20 minutes, you don't feel happy because you think about everything you do not have. And if you want a lot, it's good to want a lot, but what you should do then is see, okay, what do I need to do to get it?
Hmm.
And you break it down into the actions you need to do. And then you should ask yourself, okay, am I prepared to do that?
Right.
Maybe you are. Okay, then you can start doing it, and at some point you will have what you want to have.
Hmm.
If you are not prepared to do the actions, okay, you will get stuck in what we call a circle of wanting to have a lot of things, but feeling so much resistance, not wanting to do the actions. And where does that leave you? It's not really in a good place. So really
No.
break it down to the core of what's really happening.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go back to another example. I think many salespeople are going
Wait,
through.
maybe one more thing, because now we
Yeah.
did part of the question being the goal and make the goal more important. You also have the resistance part, and I think that's interesting because you can apply it to a lot of situations.
You're talking about the example of the fear of rejection and
The
therefore
fear
not
of
doing the action.
rejection.
All
Yes.
right.
So let's have a look at what is fear of rejection. If I ask you, do you have your phone with you? You have
Okay.
your phone with you? You can
I
show it in the...
I do. I do have my phone.
Yes?
Yeah.
I have here a glass. You
Okay.
can see it, you can touch it. But if I ask you, show me rejection or fear of rejection, you cannot show it because it doesn't exist in the real world. But then what is fear of rejection or rejection in general? It's something we create in language. It's definitely based on a real situation. For example, somebody saying no to you, and we call it rejection. And there are certain physical feelings that come with it. So you may get this anxiety or those kind of feelings, and we call it fear of rejection. But it's so it's again a label, an interpretation. So something happens, we call it rejection. We get a certain emotion with it, and this emotion makes us, or because we have this emotion, we do not do the action. But this emotion, where does it originate? It does not originate from the situation itself. If somebody says no to you, that on itself does not really create very strong emotions, or at least not for a long time. But because we put a label over the situation, and in this case it's a rejection, our emotions come from this label. Because, okay, who likes to be rejected? I do not. I don't think many people like to be rejected.
Right.
Because it doesn't make us feel good. It makes us feel bad. And by default, we do not want to look bad. So it gives us a certain emotion, and it tries to protect us from this rejection. Now, if we look at the situation itself, what exactly is happening? Maybe one person out of maybe 9 persons out of 10 are saying no. Maybe that's rejection for you. Maybe it's 5 out of 10. Maybe it's only 1 out of 10. What's happening with somebody? And if somebody is rejecting you, is it saying politely, okay, you have a very great offer, unfortunately it does not resonate with us at this moment? Is that a rejection? Or is it no thanks, bye? Or is it really starting to show it? Where did you get my number? What the hell are you calling me for? Leave me alone. Bam. Is that a rejection?
That's
What's
definitely
really
one.
happening? I don't know. I've not experienced that yet. But okay, so what happened that makes you say, I am afraid to be rejected? Is it what's the gradation, let's say?
Right.
And
When are you
then
inclined to
what's the
put that
label that you
label?
put? Yeah, what's the label that you put on top of it? And because of that label, you have certain emotions.
Right.
So then how do you deal with it? The first thing I always do, I strip the labels away. You say, I'm afraid to be rejected, which makes sense. I ask, okay, what happened? What is the physical situation?
Right.
And once you can split those two, you will have, first of all, a lot less emotions or less strong emotions, and you're better able to deal with the actual situation. And maybe
Okay.
if 9 out of 10 people say no, maybe you have to make some corrections. And maybe you are doing something that does not work, and you deal with it instead
All
of
right.
going down the path of the strong emotion and freezing of not doing anything.
Okay. I like that thinking. Don't say I don't like rejections. Say I don't like, and then make it very concrete. A physical situation, something that you could actually
Yeah.
witness in the physical world.
Yes, and maybe
Maybe
don't even say I don't like. No, this is what happened. I called 10 people, one person said yes, 9 said no. That's it. Not I
okay,
like it, I do not like it. No, that's it. Well, because I don't like
because it
it,
doesn't
we'll
matter,
try to
or
avoid as well.
right. So it doesn't matter
I
whether
don't
you like
like
it
it.
or not.
It's an interpretation. If I call 10 people and 2 say yes and 8 say no, I may be happy. If somebody else calls 10 people and 6 say yes and 4 say no, he or she may be unhappy. It's an interpretation. I want to know exactly what happened.
Okay, you all right. You want to have the objective facts without having my opinion in it. But still, I will always have an opinion whether or not I can phrase the I like it or I don't like it, right?
Yes, that's true. And let's say you are in a situation that you like, by all means, do it. It gives you a certain drive, it gives you a good feeling, keep on doing it. But on the opposite, if something happens and it gives you unwanted emotions, some things that you don't, that you prefer not to experience, it's not necessarily a big problem, but it may sit in the way of the next actions to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes an issue because
Okay,
you let that interpretation and that feeling stand in the way. And that's where I say, in that situation, look at the facts, try to get the label away, try to reduce the emotions, and just do, okay, this is the new situation, what should I do? And that's
interesting.
how you reduce the resistance.
Yeah, and there you're kind of working on the character traits of resilience, being, I mean, to make it very concrete in this example. But again, you kind of show what the power of a performance coach or high performance coach could be. Maybe kind of related to showing certain emotions, and maybe that will be the last example I had prepared regarding situations that many salespeople will recognize. I think a lot of salespeople go through a roller coaster of emotions, meaning that one day you win a very nice deal and you feel great, you feel at the top of your game, and after that maybe 2 weeks pass, a month pass, and you haven't closed a deal for a while, and so you kind of start to feel inferior, and that roller coaster of emotions I think also has an impact on your work, on your performance, on the actions that you take. And so, how would you actually deal with that?
That's actually a very similar example because what happens here, you attach your emotions to the outcome. But if I ask you again, these emotions, where do they originate? Is it from the situation itself, or is it from how you perceive the situation? If if today you close a very nice deal, you feel very happy, you start calling other people, and by all means, let it be.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, if you have 2 weeks of nothing, well, that's what happens. You have 2 weeks of no deals. Point. But what we make from it, we don't like it. We start having this internal conversation that we said before. Okay, why am I not having those deals? What happened? What's different now? Maybe people don't like it anymore when I call. What do my colleagues think of me because I have 2 weeks of no deals? And you start going down that path.
Mhm.
And because of all these thoughts that are unworkable, let's say, you get this feeling of being inferior, and then you are in a downwards spiral, and it will influence your next actions because now you will come from the position I am inferior. And if you are inferior, what do you think? If you are not happy with who you are going to pick up the phone and call 20 people? No, you are going to avoid that.
Mhm.
um, so here again, break it down to what's really happening. You have 2 weeks of no deals. Okay, move into depth. What happened during those 2 weeks? What made that you didn't have the deals? How many? Maybe you only had 2 meetings. I don't know. Maybe you had 30 meetings and there were no results. What's really happening? Look again at the facts. And if you look at the facts, you can deal with the facts. It's likable, or it's possible that you have to make some corrections. Fine. What
Mhm.
are the corrections that you should make? Make them.
Love it.
And if you stay in reality, you stay in what's really happening, you are much better able to deal with all these kind of situations. It will not go from today to tomorrow, right? You will have to train yourself into it. Once you notice it, you can start dealing with it. And that's why I said in the beginning, we create a very high level of self-consciousness. You notice what's happening with you. And then you can start dealing with situations.
Love it. I thought this podcast was going to be more, mostly for sales professionals that are in the field that want to become, or be high performers. But I feel now that this is actually more about sales leadership and how you, as a sales leader that manages a sales team, need to act as a coach for the sales professional, because you give very interesting approaches and way to look at it. So thank you for that. Um, Maybe we should round it up about here. And so, if people want to find out more about you, about Sven Baccus, they want to work with you, they want to get help, they want to become high performers, who and how should they reach you?
Yeah. So at the moment, they can reach me through LinkedIn or by email or phone. I have no website yet. That will be something for 2023. And I would say if you have a certain situation that you want to take a look at from another perspective, by all means, there's nothing attached to it, but I'm definitely open to dive into the details.
Look at that. Awesome. Now, I have one last question for you, Sven. And the question goes as follow. If Sven was a brand, what would it stand for?
Okay, quality, performance, and ambition.
Quality, performance, and ambition. I think that makes sense.
I think that makes sense as well.
Well, thank you so much, Sven, for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all those very interesting insights and best practices. And let all be high performers.
Let's go for it.